And now it's time for our roundtable where we're talking football. And with that, Greg, our producer, is going to kick things off. And I'm going to also invite our listeners to send in questions. Any questions you might have that you want to ask us, any of us on the panel, about anything on the college or pro football cards, send it to us. Simply look down below the screen. You can check the like sign. You can also register and subscribe to the channel, become a regular subscriber to this channel. Send us your questions or comments about our roundtable discussion talk, and we'll be glad to share those with you. With that, Greg, what do you want to open this roundtable talk up with?
All right, I want to ask each of you first. We'll start with you, Jim. We were watching the Washington-Philadelphia game. Washington scores the touchdown. Did you think that they were going to go for 2? And did you believe they should have gone for 2 at the time?
Well, I'm not. One of the subjects I want to talk about someday is coaching and the effectiveness of some of the coaches and the bad decisions they make. I thought they should go for 2. I would have gone for 2. First of all, you're playing a Super Bowl team that was there last year and almost won it, and you're a big underdog, and you know that, and you got a chance to really put a stamp on this thing and make a big difference and grow a pair, go for it, and try to win the game here. And they didn't, and of course, predictably, they ended up losing. But yes, it was a bad decision. But there's bad decisions all over the league, not only by head coaches but offensive coaches. And one of the things that someday I want to talk about in a roundtable, I have probably no time, about how poorly some of these coaches are with these young kids that are coming out of college in the development phase. And if you're fortunate enough to go to a team that has a good head coach or a good offensive coach or a quarterback coach, these kids can develop into something really special, or poor coaching can ruin their careers. So maybe someday we can talk about that.
You know what completely blew my mind with that question that Greg asked you, Jim, is that Ron Rivera revealed afterwards when asked why he didn't go for 2. His nickname is Riverboat Ron.
Yes.
And you'd think for sure he would have done that, but his answer was his team was gassed. Well, why would your team be gassed? You'd have to kick the point and then opt to go and play another quarter with a gassed football team. It just completely blew my mind. But you asked Jim that question, Greg, and that was Jim's answer.
What do you guys think? Victor?
I did not think he was going to go for 2, but to answer your second question, he definitely should have. And while he's done a great job holding the team together in a very turbulent, 4 years now with Washington, unfortunately, Mr. Rivera is not the guy to take Washington to the next level. It might be their offensive coordinator, Mr. Bieniemy, who's done very, very well, but I don't think it's going to be Ron Rivera. When you're on the road against a division opponent on the last play of the game, of course you go for 2 points.
Andy?
Yeah, I could see it both ways because I had the same question in my mind. On the one hand, you fought all the way to come back in that game and tie it on the final play of regulation. Did you want all that to go to waste when the percentages are 0, 0 or 100 on one play? Or take your chance in overtime, because even should you tie, it's a road game, and that helps you in the tiebreaker situation. If it were at home, I might feel a little bit differently. But also the thing is, we know whatever the decision is, if it works, he'll be praised for making the decision. If it doesn't work, he'll be criticized for not making the other decision. So it's almost like a lose-lose situation unless you happen to make the decision and it turns out to be the right decision. So I could understand both points. Now, you did mention the fact that that Rivera thought his team was gassed and might not be able to withstand. Remember, the overtime is 10 minutes. You may have 2 possessions if you're lucky. You might only have 1. You might have none if the first possession results in a touchdown. So you're talking about maybe an extra 8 to 10 plays that you're going to have on offense and or defense. So I could understand that. But if his team was gassed, as Jim and I think you said also, Victor, Why not go for it? Because your defense might not be able to make that stop if they play an extra time. Here, you're turning it over your offense, and I've got to believe every team probably has half a dozen plays for specifically that situation. Sometimes they'll use those plays in preseason to give opponents something to look for. In fact, if I'm a coach, I would almost run in preseason when the games don't mean anything. I might run the same play every time I have an opportunity to go for two, so that it gets ingrained in the opponent's mind. Well, this team ran 5 times and they all ran the same play. Maybe that's the play that they're looking for in a game that counts, and you've got something else in store.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Brian Daboll do that last year in the opening part of the season where he went for 2 at the end of the game?
That was Tennessee. Thanks for the memory that eliminated me in the Survivor contest after 58 minutes.
In week number 1,
he did that.
Then he became Coach of the Year, correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct? So, I mean, that's the thing is you can make those kind of decisions. And if you're right with an underdog team, you become a hero. But it's an underdog team, and you're that big of an underdog against a quality opponent. I go for it.
You can't become a hero if you're being conservative. There's no question about that.
Before I ask you guys about, because I'm going to let you go with the last 2-part question, but one other thing is the best trend this week is clearly, in my mind, on the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. The dog trend in that series is amazing. That's just something that you just keep going with, right? Jim, we'll start with you on this one. I mean, again, the trend is just unbelievable. I forget exactly. Well, here it is. I've got it right here. This is the actual trend for the dogs in the Pittsburgh-Baltimore series. You have the dog winning 12 of the last 17, 14-1-2 against the spread in the last 17. The dog has won 4 straight outright the last 2 years. And in the series with the 4-point spread, you've got the last 4 games decided by 9 points and the last 6 decided by 18 total. So everything's telling you to take Pittsburgh, Jim.
Absolutely. And I really don't, I'm again, we get back to the coaching issue, and I'm not a big fan of the old style of coaching that haven't really grown into what the NFL is today. Pittsburgh really doesn't have a quality quarterback, and Baltimore does. They have a very, very special quarterback. So other than the fact that this trend is sitting out there, if you said, I'm going to go with Trubisky or Pickett against Jackson every game, and who do you want? Well, Jackson's going to win most of those games because of his talent. And their coaches have both been around a long time. You said that before. One was 2007. The other was 2008 when they started here. But one has an offense that, because of that coach, that quarterback, that makes a big difference. Pittsburgh has looked absolutely terrible on offense, but coming off the embarrassment of last week, and it doesn't really matter if it's Pickett or Trubisky. Both of them are B- or C+ quarterbacks. They're going to come to play. They're going to be very fired up for this division, a division home underdog. I totally am already on Pittsburgh plus the points.
Mark, wouldn't this be a situation where you probably would prefer, if you're going to take Pittsburgh in this game, maybe to see Trubisky out there based on what you've referenced many times, which is the backup going out there in his first start and how the team seems to rally around the backup in that first start. So even throw that on top of it, and I think you might prefer Trubisky in the game.
Well, I would rather have a healthy Mitch Trubisky than a Kenny Pickett, who I'm not all that thrilled with to begin with, limping around on a bad leg. There's no question about that. And it'll also inspire Trubisky to at least get the taste back in his mouth about what it's like to be a starting quarterback in the league. But Andy labeled it when he talked about this series has been a painted 3. There's so many games fall 3 in this series between these two football teams. You're looking at probably likely that could happen well again this year. The Browns come in here Pittsburgh, check that. Baltimore comes in off that big win over the Browns last week, and Pittsburgh is hurting. They've been out-yarded in every football game they played this year. They've got to step up and play the good game. Mike Tomlin says his football team is going to get a lot more out of them sooner than later. I think sooner happens this weekend. I have to take the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, and I'm going to let you guys go by asking everybody to have an opinion on two huge games this week: the Dallas-San Francisco game on Sunday night, and the shootout, Oklahoma and Texas in college football, with Oklahoma trying to revenge a 49-0 whitewash last year in the series. Matter of fact, I think they had, 8 or 9 straight games decided by one score up until that blowout last year. No Dylan Gabriel. He plays this year. So, and by the way, Mark, we talked about it on our show last week. Texas has now played 3 straight backup quarterbacks coming into this game. Now, Gabriel's starting. He's a starter, but just keep that in mind. Texas went up against 3 number 2 quarterbacks, because you guys referenced Jalen Daniels not playing last week. So that's something I think that is interesting to note. Victor, I'll start with you with the 2 games: Oklahoma, Texas, Dallas, San Francisco.
Normally in the Red River rivalry, I'm on the over almost automatically, but this is not going to be the case this year. For me, it's either going to be a pass or an under, and I'm really, really impressed with, obviously, Texas's great defense. But Oklahoma is not known for a great defense, and they put up some ungodly numbers this year. That's why the over-under line is so low in this game. We're somewhere around 59.5 to 60. So I'm going to consider the under. I'm not going to be betting the over. And your second comment was in that Sunday night game between the Niners and the Cowboys. I'm going to hold off on my opinion in that game. I'm going to say that because I need the Thursday night outcome before I decide which way I'm going to be betting in the San Francisco-Dallas game, and I'll just leave it at that mysteriously.
Very, very mysteriously. I'm gonna lose sleep over that.
Andy?
I think it has something to do with primetime games. I'm not sure, but I'm just guessing.
I'm haven't decided. I want to see what happens with the line in the Oklahoma game. I don't know if it'll get up to 7, but I'd be looking to play Oklahoma. Venable, the coach, horrible first season last year. Comes with a defensive philosophy, and Oklahoma's played decent defense for a good part of the season, albeit against a relatively weak schedule. Maybe the best team they played was Cincinnati, who still has some talent that Luke Fickell left there when he left for Wisconsin after last season, and Oklahoma struggled to beat them 20-6, but and then the point spread was a half-point win or loss depending upon when you played the game. So I'd be looking to take the points with Oklahoma, especially if it gets up to 7. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the 49-0 last year, but I think that had a lot to do with the situation at Oklahoma with a new coach and a coach who was more known for defense than the previous couple of coaches who were known for their offensive bent, and I think that affected the Sooners all last year. I'm not sure about the total because these teams have played some very high-scoring games that were in the 90s, and I think one may have even gotten close to 100 over the last 4 or 5 years. Last year, one of the teams, and it was Texas, that put up the 49 last year, and Oklahoma probably would have put up in the mid-30s if they had been playing as well as they are accustomed to. So I might actually look over in that game. But because both of these teams have really good offenses, and usually you take a look and say defenses have the edge over offenses, but there are certain matchups, and maybe we saw it the other day in the Buffalo-Miami game, although Miami's defense, although improved, is not at the caliber of Buffalo. Miami's defense, rather, not at the caliber of Miami's. I think here you've got 2 outstanding offenses against some pretty good defenses that haven't really been tested yet this year. And I think because we've seen the offensive consistency and it's a rivalry game, it's also their last time meeting as rivals in the Big 12 before both moved to the SEC. I'm looking for another entertaining game. So if I play the game, and I haven't played it yet, I want to see if I get 7 with Oklahoma and see if this total goes down a little bit.
I agree with you,
as far as the Monday night game, as much as Dallas has struggled against San Francisco at +4, I have to take a look at the game, but I think my better opinion on the game is under that total.
Jim, before I get your opinion on both games, I do want to ask you something I noticed in this series. Dallas has won the last 3 regular season games versus San Francisco, while San Francisco has won and covered the last 2 playoff games the last 2 years. So when you handicap series like that, one team beats him in the regular season, the other one beats him in the playoffs, and now we're in the regular season. How do you take that into account?
Well, it's a game where Dallas, I mean, you might look at it this way. I'm not looking at it this way, but you could look at this and say which team would make a bigger statement for their club by winning this game, and that would be Dallas, because they've already lost the game and they have lost in the playoffs to this team, and the number 1 rated team in the NFC is San Francisco. So this is it's a road game. If they went into San Francisco, all of a sudden they might become the favorite to win the NFC championship. To me, when I look at the roster, when I look at the coaching, and coaching is very big to me, San Francisco is just a better team, and they have a more aggressive coach. They have a more offensive-minded coach. They've got, I mean, Purdy hasn't lost the game yet until the game when he won against Philly and got hurt. So, I mean, right there, you talk about a trend. Here's a guy who hasn't even lost. So, and how the hell they picked them last in the draft, or didn't, there's a lot of people in the NFL that don't even get picked in the draft. But San Francisco is the better team. They're playing a little bit at home. You don't give too much for home field, 1.5, 2 points at the most. I like San Francisco, but saying that, there's one thing I do when I'm playing small favorites is I usually play the money line. It's the same thing I do in baseball. So why not? I mean, I don't want to get into that situation that Andy talked about so much, where there's 3 points is a key number. I don't want to lay 3 points. I'm going to play the money line. I'll lay the number, and I like San Francisco to win the game. And as far as the other game is concerned, in college, I went over 59 when it opened.
By the way, what's for your money line on a favorite? What's the highest you'll go?
Oh, I'll go to 2-1 if I really like it, but I didn't. I played this at 165. It's up to 180 at this point.
Mark?
Well, I understand Jim's thinking, and I really like his thoughts about 3-point favorites instead of laying the price, laying the wood, or not the wood, but laying the favorite and playing the money line instead. It saves you a lot of agony and bad beats. It throws it out from a bad beat segment on the Scott Van Pelt show is what it does. As far as the Oklahoma-Texas game is concerned, in this week's Playbook newsletter, we have a featured column in there called 5-0 Fat Cats. And what we do is we break down how teams who start out 5-0 in their college football season do, how they fare in Game 6. Simply put, as favorites, bad. As underdogs, good. You have a collision of the two in this football game. You got a Fat Cat favorite laying points into a Fat Cat dog, and you got that matter of that 49-0 revenge from last football season. I can only look one way, and that would be to Oklahoma in this football game. The other game is a tougher game for me because you do have that playoff loss revenge from the Dallas Cowboys last football season here, and they're going to be geeked up for that. It didn't work for Miami last week, however, when they went into Buffalo, but it is in place here in this football game. What jumps off the page to me is San Francisco had been, had's the key word, a horrible home favorite for the longest while. But look here now, all of a sudden, the last 15 times they've been at home and laid points, they won all 15 games and are 14-1 against the spread. They're just destroying the number, and a lot of this has happened since Christian McCaffrey has come over here. C-Mac has really made a huge, huge impression on this football team. I could only look to San Francisco in the football game. They're clearly the best team in the National Football League, and I don't want to step in front of them right now.
Well, running backs shouldn't get paid, though, in the NFL anymore, Mark.
Well, you sound like an owner. Yeah.
By the way, does anybody else? Go ahead, Jim.
To say something to that. The pendulum swings, and we know that sometimes it swings too far. this overpaying of quarterbacks is one of the most ridiculous business decisions I've ever seen. You're paying one person that's going to have the ball each time and is going to get hit a lot unless you have a super offensive line. You're paying this one person all this money at the cost of not being able to build up and pay other players on your team that would make your team a better team rather than having this one superstar. Give me this a bunch of crap that running backs are not valuable. That's one of the most important decisions. First of all, they block. So it's like having an extra lineman if you want to block for your quarterback. Second, they gain yardage in key spots when you need something, especially in the red zone. You want to be passing the ball. You want your quarterback to be running. It's absolutely ridiculous. This new age that tells you this stuff, they're not right. They're wrong. We have to go back to basics. The offensive line and the running back is as important as the quarterback, and they need to balance out who they're paying.
By the way, at the same token, you've got Christian McCaffrey, who's an excellent pass catcher, along with a lot of other running backs in this league who can contribute both ways, both running and passing the ball, whether it be red zone or midfield.
Correct.
I was going to say, look at the Cleveland Browns since Nick Chubb has gone down. Their running game has completely disappeared, largely because they're using backup running backs. And there's even talk right now, before we did this podcast, that the Browns are even looking at the possibility of signing Jonathan Taylor, making a trade for him from the Colts. It would be a one-year rental, but nonetheless, that's what the Browns are looking at because it's gone that bad for the Cleveland Browns. It's ridiculous that they don't pay running backs in the National Football League. Every coach and every real good handicapper realizes that you win money betting these football teams, you win games in the scoreboard if you're a coach, by establishing a running game, because a running game sets everything else up.
Yeah, the importance of that is that, if you have a good running game, you can run out the clock in the fourth quarter and take time off and shorten the game. But maybe it follows the Bill Belichick model where he would just plug in a different running back seemingly every year and still go on and win Super Bowls.
Yeah, but
it's not Tom Brady at quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I do want to let everybody, the viewers, know out there that we have. Go ahead.
The genius tag did go along with having Tom Brady there. So you put the genius tag on Belichick, who knows a lot more about football than I will ever know. But with Tom Brady there, he did appear to be a genius. Now, without him, look at the decisions he's made. Mac Jones doesn't look like he's going to be great.
He's ruined.
Put in Patricia as an offensive coordinator.
Right.
Like he did last year. This genius model is ridiculous. The media builds this stuff up and they're full of it.
You go back to his days in Cleveland, he was a below average coach, but that was his first coaching job. He goes to New England, has Tom Brady for nearly 20 years, and they're the best team in football. And they've basically been an average team in the 3 seasons plus that he's been gone. What's their record? It's probably within a game or two of 500.
Hey, Greg, let me say this one thing here. I know you're a Jets fan, and things are not going well for the Jets. Things are not going well for the Giants. In fact, it's really, really gone bad and sour here. I heard this today, and it kind of blew my mind that the Jets have not run a play this year when they've had a lead in the football game. Not run a play in a football game thus far this year.
I didn't even realize that.
I will say, though, Zach Wilson did play extremely well the other day, and if he can keep up that. Now, this goes back to the coaching. They had been running on first down and on second down, and the kid was always at 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, or even if they lost yards, 3rd and 15. So you know what's going to happen. The defense tees off on you. Offensive coaches, offensive-minded coaches that know how to matriculate the ball down the field. I love that word. I hardly ever use it. And so,
a 4-syllable word, Jim. That's really nice.
That's hard for me. I graduate in high school and all that stuff. So, but you need to have a balance of that. You just can't throw a kid in there and do that. Not everybody is Aaron Rodgers who could handle all that. But the kid played well the other night, and I hope he plays well this week.
Very good, guys. That's going to put the wraps on our roundtable for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really get a big kick out of it, and I really learned a lot doing this. And like I said, if you have any subjects you would like us to hit and talk about for the roundtable, be sure to reach out to us and we'll put it on the menu, on the schedule, and do just that.